Over and under. What do you think is going to happen? Strike, ban, or nothing?
I mean, the worst of their stuff was on like Rumble. I don't think that'll affect YouTube much.
You don't think so? How was the Sauce Cast thing from yesterday? Was it good?
But it's like, it's literally the same shit as every Red Pill thing ever. So it's just all the same dumb things. It's constantly brought up all the fucking time. God, I'm so, not to be mean to any Red Pill, or I guess you don't care, but not to be mean to any Red Pill creators. I'm happy that like the movement is kind of starting to die because I'm so ready for the next thing. Holy shit.
It is pretty boring. I think there's so many times I can hear the same conversation, talking points where I'm like, I think I'm done with it. I get people who like send me suggestions all the time, and they're like, "Can men and women be friends?" Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Your friends, your mom, sisters, all the women.
Hey, and true.
You a man in your fucking 30s asking me if men and women can be friends? Like, bro, figure that shit out yourself. I don't know. At some point, having the same questions being asked a million times is just
cringe.
If a woman is in danger, is it your job as a man to protect her? So
one of the things that I hate the most is every time they talk about like a man's role and every time they talk about like a man being a leader, blah blah blah. I always like, so I've said this like in my debates now for about a year now. I've been trying really hard to always give an example for everything I'm talking about. So if I'm in a debate, I'll say like, oh well, here's an example of this or here's an example of that. I hate that every single time they talk about like the difference between men and women, it always comes back to like I need to be a leader in a relationship. Well, what does that mean? Well, if somebody breaks into my house and I gotta tell my girl, you need to leave. I can't have her ask me questions. She's just gotta run. And it's like, what? Or like, even Andrew Tate is like, what does it mean to be like the man to be responsible for women? Well, if we've gotta walk home and there's 7 alleyways to choose and 6 of them have assassins, I get to choose the one that's the safest for us to walk. And it's like, Jesus Christ. Like, is every single part of your life like built around combat? Like, what the fuck? Jesus.
And the funny thing for me is like, why do they keep going to the most extreme scenarios to justify everyday life? Like,
yeah, I know. That's what I mean. Like, are you waking up in the morning and it's like, hold on, I heard like something. I don't know if it was the stove or 7 assassins trying to break into my house. Let me go check. Stay here in bed. Like, Jesus, it's such a gotta be just. Yeah, I don't know. It's so fucking stupid.
It's just weird to be like, all right, why? Women got to do chores. Why? Because if an intruder breaks in and a gun's pulled,
yeah, I can't be doing laundry.
I'll do the dishes, you whore.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's just dumb too. Imagine if women start talking like that. Like, listen, my husband does whatever the I say, because if I'm about to give birth and I'm going to put my life on the risk,
yeah, true.
Life at risk, giving birth to this baby and potentially dying, as 14% of women do when they give birth.
Yeah,
and I want to choose where the we go this vacation. It's
yeah. Like, bruised knuckles? Excuse me, have you ever heard of preeclampsia? You don't know what you're talking about right now. The only reason you're alive right now today is because some woman risked her life to bring you into this world. Like, bro, I want to see like a crazy feminazi, like a crazy red pillar, like go at it with like this autistic shit.
And most of the guys talking are people who've never had a life and death situation. So I have no idea.
I know, yeah, that too, yeah.
They're all talking about what responsibilities they have as if they've already assumed it and they're ready to do it. Like, you've never even been in that situation. Why are you talking like that?
Mm-hmm. And like, are you really building your whole life around these like that most people, honestly, most people in their entire lives are probably never going to be like in a life or death situation where they're confronted with another person trying to kill them. That's probably a pretty, even in a major city, that's an exceptionally rare thing. Like, Jesus.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's dumb that they use the most extreme examples to just talk about everyday life. Yeah. Hey, you know, should women and men divide the home responsibilities equally?
Oh, one of my favorite quotes from last night is they were talking about like every woman in life basically gets a free ride for being a woman, but for men, even if you're trying your hardest as a man, you might get punished for it. And one of the quotes was, "There's plenty of smart, attractive, homeless dudes out there." I'm like, bro, they're probably not that many, okay?
The thing is, it's just not true. I know so many women who have to work their backs off to take care of their families, take care of their parents, take care of their siblings, because like they're struggling. So like the idea that they're just gonna get an OnlyFans and then all of a sudden everything's okay. It's just, first off, a lot of women are not built for that life. They just don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. And secondly, it's like that's just not their lived experience. Most women are going into the workforce not because they can, it's because they need to. They don't have an option but to work and to make money. And then they're shamed for it. It's incredibly cringe to me Then an economy where both people have to work, that women being professional, women being career driven is always chastised. It's like they don't have an option. These women can't just stay at home and do nothing. No one's going to pay the rent for them. No one's going to take care of their parents. There is no man around to be able to handle these situations. So I just think whenever I hear guys just shame women constantly for that, I find it cringe.
Oh. Yeah.
Why do these whores need jobs? Like, why don't they just have kids? It's like, motherfucker, there's not enough men out here who can pay all the bills. It's just life is too expensive.
And then in their end, they're talking about like men like paying for 3 women at once because you're juggling 3 different girls you're providing resources for.
Someone sent me a clip of the podcast, and I think at one point they asked like, "Who here is single?" And like everybody,
yeah.
of course they're single. Like I wouldn't expect it to be relationships.
The funniest part was like 2 minutes later. It was for the first was how many people here are single? 90% of the audience is single. And then the next one was how many of you guys want a life where you can have multiple girlfriends at one time? And like everybody raises their hand and was like, guys, start with one girl first. Like holy shit. This should be the most sad and most delusional moment of the show. Is you've got a bunch of guys that don't even have one girlfriend that are aspiring to 3.
Yeah.
I wish they would have asked them who's here has ever had a girlfriend. You probably see the same hands just going straight down because they probably never had this whole fantasy that these guys are like. This whole fantasy of having multiple girlfriends that all these guys are living is not real, and that's why whenever these red pill spaces say no, we want to foster healthy, even monogamous relationships, like it doesn't seem like that bears out in your fan base. I don't believe it. One guy super chatted in and said something like, "Thanks, Myron. Before I was making like 35K and struggling, but now I'm making 75K, and my wife knows she's replaceable."
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not,
and in 3 years, I'm making 100K.
There's no way that's real.
Jesus.
Imagine saying that to your wife. "Hey, bitch, till death do us part. But you're replaceable."
True. You got to stand your game.
I love it though. Love it. The delusion is crazy. I'm glad though. Like nothing in my real life even resembles any of that goofy shit. I don't think I've ever heard even like the weirdest people around me say anything remotely close. So it feels like mostly a terminally online thing. I feel like this is more for online communities. I don't know how much. Do you feel like it bleeds a lot into real life?
No, not much. That's why I was like, one of the things I was saying yesterday as we were watching it was like, you can tell like which women are kind of like indoctrinated into the space because like they'll go around asking like, oh, like what kind of relationship do you want? And a woman will be like, my ideal relationship is with a dominating man that can take charge, with me being submissive and trainable to be like the perfect sister. Just like, and it's like, bro, it's just like they're just like regurgitating Myron talking points verbatim, and it's like, yeah. And like in real life, you would never hear like a woman answer a question like this, you know?
No. But I think all these people are like pre-selected for, and that they already watch this kind of content, or they're already like seeing this kind of stuff being constantly said around them for having done other podcast appearances. So they've already started to adopt it. And I think also like the setting itself makes people a little bit amenable to whatever the host is saying. So,
yeah, for sure. When you've got 30 women and then like 3 guys, and anytime you disagree with the red pill take, you know Myron's going to be grilling you afterwards. Yeah.
Or you just don't come back as often. I remember when I went, like this was 2.5 years ago. It was like 9 women who already agreed, and then like maybe 1 or 2 who had some differing opinions, and then like those same women just never came back. They just stopped showing up for the pod. They stopped coming back. So you end up having a selection process where you're seeing returning faces, but the returning faces are the people who had a pleasant experience. The people who are going to have a pleasant experience are the people who agreed with them the most, right? Because if you go on a podcast and constantly get insults and harassments afterwards, you're not going to want to go back.
Yeah. So
generally people who disagree are not going to go there. So there's a bit of a selection bias on the type of women who even show up on the pod.
Yep.
Also, I saw a clip that showed up on my YouTube feed. Why is Farah beefing with the other women?
I don't even know what's sarcastic or not, so I can't even answer that question. I'm still not sure.
I like how, like, for some reason, she's only comparing herself to the other ladies who show up on this podcast, like just creating this very sexist environment by herself.
True. You should definitely tell her that the next time. If you guys
so disappointing that women are just constantly competing with themselves, even when men have never pitted them. She pigeonholed herself. She's like, why is this bitch trying to take my place? Like, why are you doing that to yourself as a feminist?
True.
And an ally of Asia. I think that's so disappointing.
Absolutely. I'm appalled.
Are you guys ever going to just stop flirting on stream?
Listen, that's how I interact with all my female friends, okay? Trying to run maximum game on 50 people all at the same time. I need Melina to know she's replaceable at any point in time by any woman that ever shows up on my stream. All right.
How did Melina find her experience? Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, it was kind of rough because there was like a 30v1 scenario, so...
Wait, the women weren't on her side? They weren't pro-open relationship? And
no.
Having
Pro
sex
open
with
relate. No one is. Why do you? God, I hate that you even joke about that because a lot of people think it's fucking serious. None of us advocate for fucking open relationship shit. But no, they're all like super ultra red pill. So when she says shit like, do you think it's good to like only look for submissive women after you 50 men and juggle through them? And like all the other women are like, oh yeah, that's like the best thing in the world.
Were the women amenable to the idea that their men were going to sleep with other women?
I don't know if Myron actually asked that question or not. Somebody can in chat. I don't think he actually asked that one. He usually just states that as a fact without polling the audience.
There was one part that made me laugh. How many? Did you ever look up the amount of people that like college people sleep with?
Oh my god, yeah. It's like, I think the average number of partners a person will have by the time they're 25 is like 4 to 6.
Yeah.
And yeah, and this, they're like, I think they finally settled at 30 by 25, and that was like some of the lower estimates they were getting. Like, oh my god.
Yeah, I think people grossly overestimate how much people are having sex.
Yeah.
Which is something I think is also a symptom of being online. Because in real life, even my friends, like when I talk to them, like they're not out here fucking all the time. Like I think if you're not a degenerate person, you're just not going to be getting it like that. So sometimes you're on these spaces and people are talking about cock carousels and all this other stuff. Mm-hmm. But I think it's just, again, a symptom of being in these spaces.
Going after, yeah, if you're chasing sex a lot, you're going to get sex a lot. Like as long as you chase it. But most people just don't. That's just not most people. Yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like even Farah believes that most people are having sex.
Yeah, I think, what was her initial estimate? Was she saying, oh my God, what did she say that was wild to me? Something like, I said, somebody guessed 50, I think by, initially we thought it was like 23. And I was like, that's 10 new partners a year. And Farah was like, I don't think 10 a year is that much. And I'm like, wait, bro, a new guy. And she's like, well, yeah, that's only one new guy a month. And I'm like, yeah, most women are not going to be like going to like a new dude every single month. You could if you wanted to, if you were a woman you wanted to get on Tinder, do it. But like most women are not. That's like that's an insane amount of partners, statistically speaking.
Yeah, I think it also doesn't account for how many people are in relationships.
Yeah,
so
that's true. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then also just some people are just not attractive, and so they're not getting any. And then like, yeah, and then also when people see like I think all the hookup stories and all the nastiest, they assume like so many people are engaging in it. But most people's college experiences, they go to class and they go home. They don't even make friends. They never meet people in college. They don't engage in any stuff. But they see like the college parties and think everybody's just getting pussy the whole time. It's just not the reality. So when people say like one new guy a month, it's like, do you think women want that? Do you think women want just fucking one new guy every single month? Like, there's absolutely no way.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like the average person isn't like participating in like crazy Greek life, you know, and is like at all these parties all the time. Like most people, a lot of people just go to classes, go back to their dorms. They probably have like a small group of friends, and like that's how they tend to move through life. Like this idea that everybody's like this crazy player in school, or that every girl's going to get railed. Like even at party schools, I doubt that like women are fucking, you know, like a new guy every month. Some probably do. I'm sure there are some that do, but it's probably like an exceedingly rare part of the population.
Yeah. Your takeaway from this whole red pill stuff, now that like the arc is like seemingly coming to an end, what is like the more interesting takeaway? Like after you get around all this retard talk about like unrealistic, like the fact that they're just not in tune with reality, more of sort of a caricature of the extreme of it, like all these women are f***ing everywhere, all these dudes are virgins. Like instead of the characters, what's a takeaway that you have that was actually interesting?
Something I think that is very interesting in Red Pill is that they were able to fabricate an entire reality out of something that I don't think maps onto anything in the real world. So for instance, but like there are things that they are saying that are taken for granted that are just so obviously, anecdotally, and statistically untrue. So for instance, the idea that like, oh, women don't mind sharing high value men. If you talk to people in these spaces, that's just like, it's so obviously true. Like everybody will agree with it. And it's so, but then if you look into the real world, it's so obviously not true. So the idea that they have like a theory that sounds good when you just hear Myron kind of like rattle off talking points, the idea that they have this whole theory built that everybody's bought into, but it's an audience full of like primarily virgins that have very, very limited experience even with women. But then they've managed to bring in other women to reinforce the theory on the shows. That's really interesting me. It's like a whole false reality that's been created that they're getting a whole bunch of people to buy into. That's wild.
But isn't that what most movements do? Beyond even the red pill, I feel like people on a religious level do that. People in a lot of different cults do that. I feel like that's pretty normal group behavior to some degree.
I feel like
a caricature of reality and then live it to an extreme.
I feel like people can do that, but I feel like you're not usually going to make grand claims that are so widespread in reality. It's going to be stuff that's a little bit more hidden. So for instance, I can understand people buying into ideas about like the Matrix, because that's like the mainstream media and the government, and it's stuff happening behind closed doors that you don't see in your daily life. But making up stuff about like relationships, like, well, men and women and dating and married people, like these are everywhere. We have parents that had at least one kid that were married. We've got brothers and sisters. We see people in like it's all around you, and people live in a different reality relating to it if you're red pill. That's crazy to me. I can understand conspiracies about like moon landings and COVID and all that shit, but the red pill shit just like elevated it to another level of manufacturing a new reality that is like contradicting everything in front of you. I think it's unique in that sense.
You don't feel like feminists do that to some degree with their own movement, like the way that they talk about men in terms of like being predatory and all this other stuff in the extreme that they go to? You don't feel like they're just playing on a similar extreme? I mean, I think I would. Women who are like deep into feminist theory and the way that they talk about relationships, like they talk about even husbands being incredibly predatory in a way that just didn't sound reasonable. So yeah,
I would have to spend time in these circles. Like I can imagine there might be some circles of like rabid feminists that are like, all men will try to rape you, all men are abusive, et cetera, et cetera. Like that could be possible. Yeah, there could be circles like that exist. But I'm not a woman. I don't spend time in those circles. That's possible.
I will say the whole like. I keep thinking about that moment. I don't know why. The moment of all the guys raising their hands saying they wanted multiple women. For some reason, just the thought of that makes me cringe incredibly much. Because I think because they've never experienced it, I think the thought of it sounds way more intriguing than it actually is. But the idea of managing multiple women at the same time, doesn't that sound so tiring and exhausting?
I mean, it depends on, not if you do it like how Myron says you should, where you're just like giving orders to women and they're only around for sex and you don't have like any relationships with any of them. I
mean, you say that, but the problem with that is their experience with these situations isn't pleasant. Like they might say like, yeah, I get to fuck all these different women or whatever. But it ends up involving a lot of drama and headache in their life, which is something they routinely tell you to avoid. Even for Tate, like some of the women he got involved with are some of the women that he's now coming against him, or some of the women that were complaining about not wanting to be in a relationship anymore, or some of the women that are now being used as logs for his like sex offender case or whatever that is. So even though they talk about this lifestyle as if it's supposed to be some kind of magical utopia where you're going to have everything you want, the reality is it's filled with stress and having to manage a bunch of personal egos and personalities that are probably not going to jive well together in an unconventional setup. It's like managing a relationship between two people is already hard enough. Now having full-fledged relationship with multiple women at the same time whilst they all know about each other, it's just like imagine living with your family while you're in a relationship.
And yeah, I understand what you're saying. Some people will opt towards it, right? I think it's fun, but I understand there's a lot of cost to it. But the main reason why it's such a hard selling point, why it's such an easy selling point, is because you're trying to convince people that managing 3 or 4 girls to fuck at the same time would be difficult when these guys don't even have one girl to manage at the same time, right? Or one girl to manage in their life. So of course, in their mind, they don't really know any of the downsides. They're just thinking of like fucking all sorts of people all the time and not worrying about anything. But like if you were to talk to somebody that's been through a few relationships, they might feel a little bit differently. But remember, the majority of their audience, the majority of red pill content creators aren't in real relationships. So, right?
Yes, yeah. I'm not even talking about being in the open relationship. My understanding is that you're in a relationship with one woman and then you have sexual relations with other people. Fair? You're not in relationships with these women. You're not managing their emotions every day or being their partners.
Oh, yeah, no, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
But like neither are the red pillar guys, right? They're saying you don't ever do that. You never do that for your main partner, they would say, I think, right?
Did I misunderstand? Was it not take multiple wives? Was that not what it was?
Well, for Tate is going to be a bit different because he's like tradcon multi-wifing it. He's like on a different wavelength. But for Myron, they're not ever talking about like supporting your spouse like emotional or anything like that. Like they don't ever want to do that shit. That's not what they're ever concerned with.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just like women that they rotate out to fuck basically.
I thought they wanted like 4 girlfriends at the same time. Like that shit sound like trash.
No, you probably heard that from like Sneako because he's talked about that a little bit. But who knows what he'll think tomorrow? So. About like how like the multi-wives girlfriends. I don't know where he's at right now on that. Yeah.
Over and under. What do you think is going to happen? Strike, ban, or nothing?
I mean, the worst of their stuff was on like Rumble. I don't think that'll affect YouTube much.
You don't think so? I'm pretty confident that if you're out here doing Nazi hail signs, I'm pretty sure even if you're on another platform, it doesn't matter.
Well, YouTube doesn't really have policies like that. It could have put you on somebody's radar. I guess it's possible. The question is going to be if a whole bunch of other content creators start making reaction pieces to that. I think that would see if it gets on people's radar.
I don't think they care. I don't think they care if it's on other. I'm pretty sure they do have a policy that if you do behavior that's extreme, even off platform, they will come for sure. I mean, they've already banned a bunch of people for stuff they said on other platforms. That's pretty standard social media stuff. They've done that for different large political figures, obviously, but they've also done that for creators.
I've only seen that happen, with huge blowback. So, like, obviously, like Andrew Tate.
Yeah, he didn't say anything on YouTube, and they fucked his shit up.
Yeah, I don't know if Fresh Fit at that level. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I also think, like, in a weird way, I feel like it just takes one news article to be like white supremacy is flourishing on YouTube.
Yeah, like a New York Times article. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and then that shit's a wrap. That shit is over. I think one thing YouTube hates more than anything is just bad press.
Everybody hates. Yeah, that's why that's the reason why quote unquote canceling is so effective. As soon as somebody gets shown, people are like, oh, we're firing that guy because they don't want to deal with the review bombs. They don't want to deal with the lingering after effects of people targeting their shit. Like, yeah.
Which is understandable. It's like there's no reason for them to want to. Like they're thinking about their bottom line. Like I'm gonna do whatever it takes.
Sure.
So if you had to take a bet, let's say
within 1 month, I think there's a 90% chance that they will be not banned. Within 6 to 12 months, I think the chance of them getting banned will increase, but it's only going to depend if they keep doing this type of content. Like if they just did their hit piece on you guys, and I guess the entire black race, and they move on from that, then I think that they'll probably be okay because it seems like they've gotten by so far with. I don't think have they ever gotten a strike before?
No, but I don't think they've ever done anything as crazy as the taking their picture and changing it to a monkey.
True, yeah.
That's on their platform. My money is on a strike coming down by middle of next week.
Damn, Jesus.
At minimum. That's my money. Because I mean, the rules are pretty clear, and so they definitely won't come for that booty. Well, we'll have to see.
We'll see.